Good evening. I will welcome everyone to the February 8th, 2016 meeting of the Union County Board of Adjustment. My name is Darren Green. I'm the board chairman. To my left is Vice Chairman Mark Tilley, board member Rob Thornton, our attorney Mr. Bill Sturgis, and to my right Mr. Rick Davis, Mr. Jennifer Stewart. We also have with us our zoning administrator Jim King, our clerk Ms. Pamela Rivers, and somewhere the executive director of growth management Brian Matthews, but where he went, but he's here somewhere. First item on our agenda tonight is determination of a quorum, and we do have our full board here tonight. Our two alternates are not with us, but all five of us are here, so we're ready to do business. Item B is approval of our minutes from October 12th. Board, you've received those in the email. Do we have any questions about those minutes? If not, I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item C, discussion of rules of procedure, but you know, we promised this fine group of people here that we would let them be first tonight, so we're not going to discuss nothing until we deal with their request. So we'll move that down, and if we have time to deal with that, we'll deal with it. If we won't. So, item A, public hearing, determination of conflicts of interest for special use permit 2015-009. Board, you've seen this. Does anyone have a conflict they need to declare? All right, good deal. So, at this time, I will open the public hearing. Special use permit 2015-009. This is Rayleigh Miller Properties requesting a special use under section 25.010. I'm not going to read all those, you understand that. Union County Development Ordinance to construct and operate a 240,000 square foot retail center. That would include a large format retail, 50,000 square feet or more, drive-in or drive-through facilities, fueling station with or without convenience store, and personal vehicle repair maintenance facilities. Property is zoned PUD 6-B2, located at 9802 Ray Road, being on tax map 06-198-002A. Mr. Jim King, if you could come forward, please, and be sworn. You swear the evidence you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you, sir. Mr. King, is the permit or the petition complete, sir?
It is.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to be very brief in my presentation tonight. There's a lot going on here, and so just to,
Hold on a second. I got one more step I need to take care of for you. Board, I need a motion to hear the petition.
Make a motion we hear the petition.
We'll have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. King, carry on. Give us your.
all right, as I said, this is going to be very brief. The applicant's here tonight. He's asking for a special use permit. It's going to be a retail center with multiple special uses, locations at 9802 Ray Road, and Rayleigh Miller Properties is the applicant. What they're asking for is they're asking for a special use permit that would include the following uses, which require individuals. They are under the ordinance individual special uses, and we're having a little bit of technical difficulty right here. Hold on 1 second. All right. Sorry about that. The uses that they are requesting is restaurants with possible drive-throughs, possible fueling station, vehicle repair maintenance facilities, financial services with drive-through, and a large format retail establishment with a possible drive-through or drive-up. Property is located at the intersection of Ray Road and Tom Short. I have it highlighted here in the red. And you can see to the west of the property is Marvin's jurisdiction as well. So Marvin is very close to this. The property is part of the PUD. It's zone PUD 6, B2. Basically, all the uses that are allowed in B2 or with special use permits in B2 are also allowed in the PUD 6. It is surrounded by B2, PUD 6, B2 to the south, to the west, and then to the north and east has PUD 6, R6 and PUD 6, R20. The property currently has a special use permit. Here is the existing site plan for the special use permit. As you can see, it has approximately 9 out parcels, and what they're identifying here is primarily the anchor tenant to the back rear of the property along with the parking. They are amending their site plan here, or conceptual site plan, to show not only their anchor tenant, but also some other retail establishments. The out parcels reduced to about 6 out parcels, and then they're also adding some additional standalone structures to the site as well. The applicant has provided staff with some conceptual elevations. These are not, concrete. There could be some changes to them once the buildings are designed, but it's to kind of give you a conceptual or understanding of how the development could look and stay within, the same principal designs as what we'll see tonight. This is looking from another elevation. This is coming from the side over closer to Mecklenburg County, looking at it from that angle. So what I've done here is I've taken the conceptual site plan that was provided that I just showed you and broke it out to kind of give you an idea where on the site plan you're looking at. Right here, it's going to be that upper northwestern quadrant, close to where the is it Tinton Hill comes in to the project there, and Somerset is behind them. This is looking from Tom Short Road. This is showing how that they will screen the side of the building there, because with it being a large retail, and also their large retail, there doesn't have a whole lot of windows on the side, so they're excuse me, they're putting some smaller retail structures there. They do have a lot of glass in them and everything to kind of break up that view from Tom Short. Here we're looking at two retail buildings. The one to the right of the screen, farther back, that's going to be the large format retail. The other one's going to be a large retail, but it's not going to fit the classification as a large format, so it would be less than 50,000 square foot. Here's we're looking from the traffic circle, standing behind the little pedestrian area right there would be Somerset, and it's kind of showing you some of the buildings as they stand on the site plan. Well, as I said earlier, I was going to keep this short. From the original submittal of the application, there has been substantial changes. The applicant is present tonight, so I would like at this time to turn it over, let them to go through some of those changes, maybe some of the community meetings that they've had with the surrounding properties, give a kind of a background of that. Staff is present to answer any technical questions, if there's any questions that may occur, and so if it's okay with the board, I'd like to turn it over to the applicant.
Okay, they would come, please be sworn. Actually, anyone who would like to present evidence in favor, presenting evidence in favor of this petition, please come now. Well, if you're on staff and you haven't been sworn yet, and you swear the evidence you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. Please, you've probably already been told this, or you remember from our last time if you were here. Please fill these out if you're speaking. Leave them with the clerk, and please state your name, your address, and the reason you're here, I guess. Present your evidence.
Good evening. I'm Tony Lathrop. I represent the applicant, and I'm at 100 North Tryon Street in Charlotte. And I have a presentation that will go through the criteria for this permit, but I first want to directly address Mr. King's request and question about the conditions and the other things. So with that, Ken Orndorff is with Rayleigh Miller, the applicant. So before we do anything else, he's going to address that. And basically, just quickly go through the conditions that were updated and amended from the original submittal.
Good evening. I'm Ken Orndorff with Rayleigh Miller Properties. As you said, I'm just going to go through the 6 or 7 amendments we've made since the original petition was submitted. We've negotiated and worked with HOA reps, certain of the neighbors who are joining us, to try and come up with some things that help them reduce any impacts and allow us to provide a successful project. First thing, we originally asked for 275,000 square feet. That has been reduced to 240,000 square feet total. That includes every inch of leasable area on the site, out parcels, anchor tenant, small tenants, with a maximum of 240. The next change is, I guess it's dependent on what happens next month with the beer and wine referendum in the county. We had originally asked for up to three fast food uses with drive-through window. If that referendum passes, we would agree to reduce that to 2. It gives us another opportunity to do a non-fast food restaurant if beer and wine is approved. In a similar manner, we originally asked for 2 personal vehicle repair and maintenance uses. We will reduce that to 1 if the beer and wine referendum is approved. And I don't see us going to the next step of this, which is, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, is that major development permit with the planning board? Is that the next, after if this gets approved?
That is correct.
We won't go through that process until we know the outcome of that referendum. Number 9, and let me pull up. This has been an item of great concern for the neighborhood and us as well. We want to make sure we address this properly for safety, security, access, now and in the future. So what we've agreed to do is, in this area here, planning staff recommends that this be a through connection between a commercial project and Tenton Hole Lane. So maybe it's easier to do this in this area right here. So what we've agreed to do is to establish that connection, but provide secure access via a gate that will allow for emergency vehicles to pass. It can be open at other times. There was an issue with their other access point. This neighborhood is over 400 lots and has a single point of access. So this will provide another way for emergency vehicles and regular traffic to get in and out in the event of emergency or need. So we've come up with a solution for that in this area here. Next change, we have agreed in part of this to extend sidewalks along Ray Road that currently do not exist. So our project, you guys can't see what I'm doing with this.
No, we can't.
Okay. So here's
They can.
the parcel. We are committing today, which is subject to review and approval by DOT, to extend sidewalk from here to the bridge in Mecklenburg County. Otherwise, there really is no vehicle for that sidewalk to be installed. The second area is here. This sidewalk terminates right here, just past this project. And our commitment is to extend that sidewalk along Ray Road all the way to Creekstone Drive to provide Hunter Oaks and other neighborhoods in this area pedestrian accessibility to the project. Again, this might be the only vehicle to provide those. The next one is that we've agreed to hours of delivery restrictions for the areas that are abutting residential lots, which is, I believe, and I can't read the numbers, I don't have them memorized, these buildings here, deliveries must occur between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. So we try to sympathize with the neighborhood in terms of delivery trucks and the things they bring, whether it's noise, lights, and those areas would not be allowed to take deliveries between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. And the last new condition is this store, this large format retail, we've agreed to a maximum size for this if it is a grocery store of 82,500 square feet with an initial maximum size of 77,500 square feet. So this could not be a large format grocery store. If it changes uses, it's another use. It could be a little bit larger. As a grocery store, it's capped at 82,500 square feet. That's the list.
Do you have all those written down that you can give the zoning administrator and maybe mark as Exhibit A or?
We do.
one?
I can provide this.
So we can be a better job of keeping track of it. Why don't you just put applicants Exhibit 1 or something?
What I have,
Or if you have something similar to that accomplishes it, that's fine.
how about, I have an exhibit 1 that is the updated list of conditions that includes those, and, but we could attach his
Yeah, why don't you do that so we know
on the back.
that'd be perfect.
And we just have one copy of that, so I'll go ahead and pass those up. While we do it. Got them on here? Great. Here we go. That's all of those, and then this is the one that Kevin's update.
Just quickly, by way of introduction, I'll try not to go over what Mr. King and Mr. Orndorff have already gone over, but the existing special use permit is there, and it's zoned PUD 6B2, and the specific uses have already been talked about, so I won't take up your time with those. All these are permitted or designated as special uses if permitted under the procedures in the ordinance. We will show that for this application to be approved, that the proposed use complies with all the regulations and standards generally applicable within this zoning district and specifically applicable to this type of use. Second, that the proposed development won't materially endanger public health or safety. Third, that it won't substantially injure the value of surrounding or of abutting property and as a public necessity, and that it'll be in harmony with the area in which it's located. And fifth, that it will be in general conformity with the comprehensive plan. So in that vein, first, just with respect to the regulations and standards, I'd like to ask Mr. Orndorff to come up again, and I'm just going to walk him through that. If you would introduce yourself briefly, just to lay a quick foundation. You work at Raley Miller, and what are your licenses that you have?
I'm a licensed commercial real estate broker. We have been in commercial development for 16 years as Raley Miller Properties. Before that, we've all been, I have two partners that are here, we've all been in commercial development for longer than that. This is what we do: commercial projects, grocery stores, drugstores, office buildings, retail space. And this is typical of what we do.
And you said you've had 16 years experience?
Yes, with this firm.
Okay. And then with prior firms, how many more years?
Another 10.
Okay. I'll offer Mr. Orndorff as an expert in commercial real estate. And you said you've had collaborative discussions with the neighbors, correct?
Correct. We've met with them individually on site via telephone. We've met with HOA representatives, just trying to flush out some of the major points that they feel are important to their goal of having this be a harmonious project and ours having to be a successful retail project.
And with respect to the regulations and standards for Union County, briefly, can you just describe your efforts to have it comply with those?
We've read through the new land use ordinance, the new comprehensive plan, taken every effort to make sure that this complies in all respects to those. The only things that are not purely in compliance are the special uses that we're requesting. Those are permitted in this district, so we feel that even those comply with the ordinance of land use.
Mr. King, can I have the site plan also included in the record, please? This is marked as Exhibit 2.
It's just copies of the site.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Orndorff, I'd like you to briefly go through a few of the conditions that y'all have basically self-imposed along the border with the neighborhood. And these are, for example, setbacks. You want to come over here? Yeah. So you have a 60-foot minimum setback for the adjoining residential lots, which is twice the minimum requirement.
More than twice. The minimum setback for commercial zoning of this type to residential zoning of the type next to us is 25 feet. We are maintaining a minimum 60-foot buffer around the entire perimeter of the property that adjoins residential lots.
So you've got
Control area.
a 60-foot minimum land use buffer?
That's correct.
Okay. And then you already talked about connectivity with Tinton Hall Lane, correct?
Yes, a solution that we believe meets the goals of the neighborhood and our project.
And then are you including bike racks in the project?
We have committed to provide 2% or a minimum of 2% of the number of parking spaces as bicycle parking to encourage pedestrian and bicycle activity to and on the site.
And shielding outdoor light and consistent with the ordinance?
It is, yes. We will. There's some guidance in the ordinance in terms of light trespass and light levels extending past the property line, which we certainly will comply with.
And with respect to the parapet on the store buildings, will that be extended in accordance with the ordinance?
Absolutely.
And fencing around stormwater ponds?
Yes, these that's a condition from the original SUP or the current SUP to provide that these are safe for children or pedestrians. So we will provide fencing around stormwater facilities.
And I'll get into this more in a few minutes, but the stormwater system, will that meet and exceed the state and
Absolutely.
local codes?
It's local code. It's NCDOT. There are several guidelines we have to meet. State and NCDOT being probably the two most critical.
And can you briefly discuss the architectural design of the main parcel and the out parcels?
Yes, our goal here is to generally, this project across the street, this is Marvin Town Center. The architecture of the new buildings on the proposed site is very similar to what you see in these buildings. That's the building along Ray Road. This is Starbucks. We've got some of the same elements, the arch, stucco. There's another building. You'll see very similar architecture. So our goal is to take this architectural theme and continue it so that it's harmonious with what's existing.
Very good. And I will, and I'll get into this a little bit more in a few minutes, but the transportation improvements are going to be all consistent with NCDOT's requirements?
Correct. We have submitted a traffic impact analysis that has been reviewed, and I think we've received preliminary comments. But whatever they make us do is what we'll end up doing, if not more.
and I've got sidewalks here, but you've already discussed that, so I'll skip over that. And the delivery truck hours, you've already discussed as well. And the maximum floor area for the grocery store, as you've already discussed. The the building height complies with the applicable ordinance for a 35-foot
It
maximum.
will, yes, we're not requesting a change in the ordinance requirement for that.
And and you've already said 60-foot setbacks and buffers along
Along
the
the
edges.
residential property, along the street fronts, it's a 25-foot buffer area on these public streets.
Got it. So it's required 25.
Correct.
And let me switch gears now to talk about harmony with the surrounding areas. And we have some renderings here. And Mr. King, may I hand you Exhibit 3, which is a set of renderings? And, ask that they be included in the record, please. And Mr. Orndorff, could you briefly describe how this development will be in harmony with the surrounding area?
I guess the most critical component, when the PUD was designed, this land and other land was set aside as B2 zoning for the commercial development to this overall PUD, which includes a lot of other areas. So just by definition of that PUD, this is harmonious because it is the B2 component of that PUD that was designated in 1997, 98, I can't remember the exact date. In addition to that, we will be harmonious with other commercial properties in the area, built and unbuilt. I've seen other properties that have approved mini storage, swimming pool, existing facilities across it, Martin Town Center, and the architecture will create a harmonious environment.
And the proposed uses in the application are correct. They're permitted under the ordinance under Section 25.010, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And we've previously handed up the conditions and the self-imposed conditions. Can you describe how those are harmonious?
Those are just an effort to make sure that we are, again, harmonious with the neighborhood, respecting the fact that we're next to a residential neighborhood, plus homes, many more in other areas around us, not necessarily immediately adjoining. And so those are efforts to make sure that this project respects our location next to residential units.
And with respect to the building designs, the parapets and the architecture considerations took into account harmony with the surrounding area?
Correct. I can't say that we're in harmony with every home in the neighborhood, but we are generally in harmony with other commercial and using a lot of the same materials that are used in homes in the area as well.
I would, I just have a couple of cases just for the record that I just would like to hand up. One is called the Mann Media case. It's 356 NC1, and that simply stands for the point that the inclusion of a use as a conditional use in a particular zoning district establishes a prima facie case that the permitted use is in harmony with the general zoning plan. And I've got that case marked as Exhibit 4, and then I'll hand it to you with another one that I've got marked as Exhibit 5, Mr. King. And the one that's Exhibit 5 is called Woodhouse, and that's 299 NC 211. And that stands for the proposition that the inclusion of the particular use in the ordinance as one which is permitted under certain conditions is equivalent to a legislative finding that the prescribed use is one which is in harmony with the other uses permitted in the district. So if I may, I'd like to just give those to you for and request that they be included in the record. So that's 4 and 5. Thank you. Now, let me shift gears again, Mr. Orndorff, with respect to general conformity with the comprehensive plan. Now, does the comprehensive plan encourage development of retail, restaurants, and services that meet customer needs?
Yes.
And with respect to small community centers, it specifies that a small community center is consistent with the ideas and vision that the community has for future development, correct?
Right.
And in the ordinance, a small community center is 125 to 400,000 square feet, and this one proposed is in that range. It's 240,000.
It is, yes.
Okay. Now this one, you've talked about a grocery store. I think the ordinance says anchored by or the comprehensive plan says anchored by a retailer or grocery like Harris Teeter. And that's the situation here.
Very likely Harris Teeter is one of the owners of the property with us, so it is likely that Harris Teeter will be an anchor tenant of this project.
And the comprehensive plan discusses these centers being near concentrations of residences, and obviously this is.
Correct.
Right. And it's, again, consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's adjacent to the major thoroughfares, the two being Ray and Tom Short.
Railroad and Tom Short Road.
Right. And it's and consistent with the plan. It's comprised of retail, shop, restaurant services, and other community serving commercial uses, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And as part of this, are you incorporating a convenient road network and system of sidewalks? I know you've already talked about sidewalks.
Sidewalks, bicycle activity, or bicycle access, vehicular access, all in accordance with general principles of retail and commercial development.
All right, let me move on and ask you now about public health and safety. Will this development have infrastructure and connections for services and utilities like water, sewer, electric, garbage, fire, and the like?
We'll be providing water and sewer, stormwater, electrical, garbage collection will be provided by the development, fire protection is provided by the county. But we will have to meet the requirements to building sprinklers, fire hydrants, all those apparatus.
And of course, you'll comply with all those codes,
That's
correct?
correct.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have for you now. Could I ask Jonathan Guy to come up, please?
Can we ask him a couple of questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you all off.
Come on back up. Come on. Yeah, I understand, but our board, we like to ask questions while they're fresh in our head. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. The gate that you're talking about on the road access that goes back into the housing development,
Yes, sir.
you're saying that gate will be closed at all times?
It will be closed the majority of the time. Our goal here is, again, to provide access for emergency vehicles. So
Okay, well, who will control that? Who controls the opening and closing of it, and who determines at what need it needs to be opened and closed?
for now, that is, I guess, ours. Our goal is to work with the neighborhood and decide if they want to provide more access at some point in the future. But now the gate will be on our property. We will control it. We will provide Knox key, Knox box, or other mechanisms to open it for emergency vehicles only. If the neighborhood wants to open it for anything else at any other times, then I guess we would need to sit down and decide, what's appropriate, how to control it, when to open it, when to close it.
But my question, one other question is, would it be more convenient for the neighborhood if the gate was left open for the public to come in and out of the neighborhood without having to go out on Ray Road to come back in?
In my opinion, it would be more convenient. I believe the neighborhood has other issues.
Okay, so the neighborhood is different, okay, I understand.
Well, I got a question on that. When we approved the original plan, I thought the gate issue was addressed on it, on who had control of it and all that.
That's correct. We had control of it then. It was a different layout. It was on a cul-de-sac, the same general area. but it was a gate for emergency vehicle access only.
Right, that's the way I remember it from that
We're carrying
meeting.
that theme to this project, but we're connecting in a different way with the ability potentially in the future to change the access terms if the neighborhood wants them, and we can work that out. But as a minimum, it's for emergency vehicles.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I assume the 240 square foot maximum includes all the out parcels?
That's correct. That'd be all the GLA on this entire parcel. Out parcels, everything.
And are y'all requesting that this board void the existing special use permit if it grants this special use permit?
Yes, if that's appropriate.
It seems like it would be. I don't think we want two special use
Right.
permits for the same property out there.
This permit will expire, I believe, next month. I believe it was done in 2008, four-year permit. It was extended by the Permit Extension Act, some year. So I believe 8 years is the life of that permit based on those things. It expires in March of 2016.
I didn't know we had, Jim, you know, I didn't think our ordinance has deadlines for special use permits. That you had to do something with that next period of time or it
I
automatically was
thought
voided.
when we done a special use permit, it was for the life of that property.
I thought so too, Jim. I mean, sometimes there may be other things that come into play, but do you recall whether our ordinance has a limitation on the life of a special use permit if you don't build?
It's not so much on the life of the special use permit as to when the development occurs. It gives you a time frame in which for the development to occur. Once the development has occurred, then that special use runs with the land forever.
So is there ordinance provision if you don't start building infrastructure in X period of time, you lose your special use permit?
The old ordinance stated that.
Okay.
And I'm not real sure I'll have to look in the new ordinance to see if it's got the same language or not.
Well, for clarity purposes, y'all would be agreeable just to having the old permit be voided by the board if it grants this one.
That's correct.
Right, and that's the relevant issue.
Right. And I noticed they're like, it looks like there are like six different uses for which you need a special use permit. I may not have counted them quite right. Maybe they're more than six.
It would be the large format retail over 50,000 square feet is one of those.
But when we know the location for that special use permit, is that right?
That is this one here.
Okay.
The second would be a fueling center with or without convenience store.
Do we know the location of that one?
This is it here, out in this area. With me. The others would be fast food use with drive-through window. So there's 3 of those today, potentially 2. So I'm not sure if you're counting 3 of those or just
Right.
as a group.
We don't know the location of those, I
We
take
don't know
it.
the location, but they would be on the out parcels. They are limited to these out parcels that are shown here. So you would not have these interior to the site or in other locations. They would be strictly confined to the out parcels, which are.
And that's why I'm getting at, I'm trying to get a more physical identity for the location of these. And so keep going.
And then I believe the only other one is the auto service, personal auto repair and maintenance, also limited to the out parcel here. So that would be limited to this area here as well.
The financial services with
Right.
drive-in doesn't.
Financial service, same thing, out parcel. All of these special uses, other than the large format retail, are limited to the out parcel areas.
And you've already identified where the gas station would go though. Okay.
Mr. Stewart?
Okay, are you going to have some way of controlling, I mean, is it going to be documented, your architectural building finishes somewhere so that that can be controlled in the future, just to kind of keep a cohesive look in the development?
We will have a private declaration on the property, which means that any development, whether it's an out parcel that is sold, built by someone else, they have to meet the same architectural requirements of the overall theme of the project, which is conceptually, as Jim showed, we're submitting those as evidence into this, that all of the buildings
implement it and enforce.
I have
Any
a
other-
question.
Yes, sir.
The out parcels that will have the drive-throughs, will those only be accessible from inside? Or will they be from Tom Short or Ray Road? Will there be any access points from there, or they're gonna all be accessed from internally?
They'll all be accessed internally. The only access points to Tom Short and Ray Road are shown here. Access 1 through 5. So I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All of these out parcels will be accessed internally, not directly from public right of way.
Anything else?
All right.
Thanks, sir.
Oh, I'll keep moving. Mr. Guy, now please. And could you let the board know your name and profession and what your address is?
Sure. Jonathan Guy with Kimley Horn and Associates, 200 South Tryon Street, Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a transportation engineer.
Could you state your name again, please?
Sure. Jonathan Guy, G-U-Y.
And what are your, in your professional field, what licenses do you have, Mr. Guy?
Sure. I'm a registered engineer in the state of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. I'm also a certified planner with the American Institute of Certified Planners.
And how long have you had those various licenses and certifications?
I've been practicing for 18 years. I've been certified, do some quick math, 12 years.
And I'll just go ahead and offer Mr. Guy as an expert in traffic engineering. Now, before we go into your data and all that, have you reached a conclusion about the improvements and design of the development from a traffic standpoint, and whether this development will mitigate the traffic impact such that it will not materially endanger public health and safety? You have an opinion about that?
Yes, I do. Actually, we spent quite a while working with NCDOT and the county relative to the placement of the access points and the degree of access, whether it's a traffic signal, full movement intersection, left over, or right in, right out. And as you can see on the site plan, which is up on the screen, we've concentrated those locations so that intentionally so that it begins to pull traffic off of Tom Short Road and allows the development to use Ray Road to move traffic in and out without overburdening Tom Short.
And so because of that, it will not materially endanger public health or safety?
In combination with the mitigation required by NCDOT, that is correct.
All righty. And so let me ask you about the types of data you've relied on. You've had collected traffic data?
That is correct.
And had a traffic analysis of the driveways and intersections?
That is correct.
Trip generation data?
Correct.
And then the level of service breakdown for the respective driveways?
Correct, according to NCDOT guidelines.
All righty. There has been a traffic impact analysis prepared, and that's voluminous. And I think there's one already in the file, and we have one here, which we'd like to include in the record as Exhibit 6. We just have one because it's thick. I'd like to add that up and ask that that be included in the record. I want to ask you about several of the improvements and with respect to traffic mitigation. First, let's talk about Tom Short Road, which you all have on the site plan. It's running right up there. Let's first talk about there's two driveways on Tom Short, and one of them is a right in, right out. Will you put the cursor on the one that's the right in, right out?
Right here. It's the one closest.
Closest to Ray Road? Okay. All righty. And then the other one that's up there is it's a right-left driveway with both right and left turning lanes.
Correct, that'd be a full movement intersection.
Okay.
It's in alignment with the existing Coles driveway.
And if you'll go down to the main intersection of Ray and Tom Short, will there be an additional right turn lane there?
Absolutely. So the right turn lane that's currently not out today is going to be constructed back up to driveway 1 and then just beyond the right and right out intersection. Which is driveway number 4, excuse me. That'll carry back up there. You can see there's actually a right turn lane that drops into the full movement driveway. This was designed in coordination with NCDOT to allow traffic that is turning right. There is a heavy movement in the morning headed onto Ray Road. This allows that traffic to get outside of the queue for the left turning traffic that's here, and that will actually improve the operations that are out there currently today.
All right, let's talk about Ray Road now, and go up to the northernmost driveway.
Okay.
All right, and there'll be a traffic signal there.
Absolutely. The study considered the impacts of a traffic signal on Ray Road. This signal was warranted based on this development. A couple things to point out about this is that one of the requirements with NCDOT is that this new signal is coordinated with the existing signal at Tom Short as well as the one at Marvin School Road. So there will be interconnect so that all three talk together, so that we create a timing pattern during the AM, PM, noon, Saturdays and Sundays. They all work together. So if you've ever been on a road and you drive, you get a red light, and then you see the next one's a green light, that's what we want to avoid. So this connectivity will allow you to drive continuously on Ray Road at the design speed that it's set up for.
Okay, will you move down to the next one
Absolutely.
and describe that one?
This is a right in, right out. One of the features that you'll notice about all of these driveways is that they have right turn lanes. Again, that's designed to move traffic that is coming into the development out of Ray Road, allow it to slow down where it's supposed to, so you're not stopping through traffic. One of the things that's relevant to this driveway that's required by NCDOT is that each of the driveways that you can get into the out parcel accesses are located 100 feet back from the existing right-of-way. That's so that when you turn into the development, you're not immediately hitting or running into a car that's trying to turn left. You've got a ways to get in. For the main signalized access, that's actually 200 feet. We push that back even further. But you would not be able to make a left turn out of here. It's only a right in and right out.
Okay, now do the next one, please.
The last one, driveway number 3, this is it's what's known as a leftover, so you'll be able, from Ray Road, be able to make a left into the development. You'll also be able to make a right in, and then, but only exiting, you'll be able to make a right out. Again, a right turn lane, you've got adequate storage for the existing leftover. This leftover is shifted down slightly from where it is today out there. And that was done in conjunction with this signal up here. If there ever was to be a fourth leg, you would need to accommodate a left turning movement at that signal. So we needed to shift this one down just a little bit to allow for that future storage that would be the signal.
So overall, does this mitigate the AM rush hour traffic?
Absolutely.
And does the impact and the traffic analysis impact comply with the Union County Development Ordinance standards and regs?
Yes, it does.
And NCOD requirements?
Correct.
DOT requirements
Yes,
as
sir.
well. All right, thank you. That's all I have. If you all have any.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Guy. Next, I'd like to ask Brent Cowan to come up. And if you could just let the board know what you do and where you work.
Yes, sir. My name's Anthony Brent Cowan. I'm a registered engineer in North Carolina and South Carolina. I work for the Isaacs Group in Charlotte. Address 8720 Red Oak Boulevard. And I have been there since 1994.
Speak more to the microphone, please.
I've been there since 1994. Received my license in 2000.
And you're a civil engineer, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you work in stormwater systems and design.
Yes, sir.
And what licenses do you hold?
I have I graduated from UNC Charlotte in '96 with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. Received my professional engineering license from North Carolina in 2000 and from South Carolina in 2001.
And so, again, tell me how long you've been working in that field.
Well, '94 till now.
Okay, 21, 22 years.
Yes, sir.
And, all right, I will offer Mr. Cowan as an expert in stormwater systems and their design. Let me ask you about the stormwater and drainage systems for this development. Have you got an opinion about whether they are designed and oriented such that surface water will not materially endanger health or public safety?
Yes.
And what's your opinion?
My opinion is that the development will be designed and permitted through reviewing agencies so that there will be no adverse effect to the environment or public safety and health.
All right, well, let's talk then about some specifics about that stormwater drainage system. First, if you'll describe the curbing and guttering system and how that will affect stormwater.
So my main job in this is I do many things with permitting, but one of the main things I do is assign grades to the site. So I basically assign elevations to everything on the site, the buildings, the parking lots, so that when it rains, water flows away from the buildings, flows towards curb, then it runs along the curb and into storm drainage boxes. And then once it gets in those storm drainage boxes, it goes to into pipes, through a series of pipes into stormwater management ponds. We call those BMPs for best management practices. And then from there, those ponds treat the water, they hold the water back, and then release it at a safe rate.
I was going to ask you about the piping. Did you just talk about the piping system?
I did kind of roll in the piping
Yeah.
on the hills of it.
And so the piping system will direct the runoff into the retention pond?
Yes.
And then once in that pond, the water will slowly drain under Ray Road to the creek across the street?
That's correct.
And that stormwater management system with the curb and guttering, piping, retention pond will be constructed in accordance with NC Diener and Union County requirements for those systems?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, how about the planted areas in this development? Will they assist in absorbing surface water?
So any grassed area, vegetated area, they do not contribute as heavily to stormwater runoff as, say, a parking lot or a rooftop does. So areas that are green on the site will allow some stormwater infiltration into the groundwater table. While and there is some drainage that comes off of those areas, just not quite as much as the parking lots.
And will the so when you look at the overall stormwater management system with the planted areas and the other aspects we talked about, will that prevent a material increase in the runoff water that reaches these existing roads?
Yeah, the green, if I'm understanding you correctly, the green areas will reduce the amount of stormwater runoff that leaves the site.
Right. And so with respect to the overall, when you talk about the piping, the curb and gutters, retention pond and everything, it will prevent any material increase in that, correct?
That's right. The whole drainage system will work together so that when it rains, the post-developed runoff rate will not increase over the pre-developed runoff rate.
And that combined stormwater management system will meet all the standards and regs of Union County?
Union County, the state of North Carolina, Division of Water Quality will have to submit plans to Raleigh for them to review. Union County has their own stormwater department that we will submit plans to for review and approval, as well as the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Because ultimately, our water leaves our site and goes into the state road so they have to approve that as well.
And with respect to when it's being built, to prevent sediment runoff, will there be measures included such as silt yards and gravels, and then the basin and the pond? Can you describe the sediment control?
Yes, sir. We will have to get a grading permit, grading and erosion control permit from the state of North Carolina. I have to design perimeter controls that include silt fence, construction entrances, which is a long driveway with big rocks that shake the mud off the tires as you're coming in and out of the site. Sediment ponds around the perimeter where all the water, when it rains, and you got a denuded site, it's nothing but dirt. The water runs to these ponds, and they slowly are drawn out, and the particulates filter to the bottom while the water comes off the top, and it's clean water. So the objective is to not have any sediment leaving the site. And we produce plans and permits.
That's all that we have. Do you all have any questions for Mr. Cowan?
I have a question. Talking about the stormwater runoff, the way you've got your system designed here, how many, we're used to getting 3 inches, well, the weather forecast say we're going to have 2 inches an hour for 3 hours. How much water will your runoff system handle? Is there any way to explain that? I mean, sure, just a sprinkle, sure, but if it's raining, we
Yes.
get 4 inches of rain in 24 hours, would it handle it?
Yes, so the North Carolina requirements in this watershed are that we have to treat for water quality the 1-inch storm. So that's really just a volume of 1 inch of rainfall over the entire area. Then we have to control the 1-year storm. Let me back up. In this watershed, it's a different water quality treatment. It's the difference between the 1 year pre and the 1 year post. It's a bigger volume than the 1 inch because this is a special watershed with the hill splitter in this watershed. So so that's the water quality. And then the other thing that the state requires us to do is the 1 year. We have to control that so that the rate doesn't exceed the pre-developed condition. On top of that, we will be doing the 10-year and the 25-year detention. So we'll be detaining that volume so that the rate of the 25-year storm does not leave any quicker than the pre-developed condition. For the bigger storms, we can't hold those back. So we make sure that the pond safely passes those bigger storms. We size them up to the 100-year storm. We size our spillways, our emergency spillways for the 100-year storm, so that they do not overtop and cause dam failures and also property damage and life.
So there's no danger that the watershed from here will have any effect as far as flooding the neighborhood around it?
Oh, no, sir.
Okay.
The neighborhood around us is, uphill of us. These ponds are downhill towards the road. When the water leaves the pond, it will go into Ray Road, underneath Ray Road, and into the creek that's on the other side. And again, those release rates will be the same as they are today up to the 25-year storm.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
One more witness, Randy Hopkins. Ms. Hopkins, if you could please just introduce yourself and tell the board where you work and what you do.
My name is Randy Hopkins. I'm an MAI, which is a designation as a commercial real estate appraisal designation. I am in Charlotte, North Carolina. I gave you my home address on the form, but my work address is on Monroe Road.
And so I'm going to ask you to speak about the requirement that this development will not substantially injure the value of the abutting property. So I'm going to ask you some questions about property values. How long have you been a MAI real estate appraiser?
23 years.
And what licenses and certifications do you have?
North Carolina General Certified, South Carolina General Certified, and my MAI designation, and I have a North Carolina broker's license.
And how long have you had those licenses and certificates?
Since the time that they were introduced.
When was that roughly?
1991 for North Carolina and whenever South Carolina followed.
Okay. I tender Ms. Hopkins as an expert in property valuation. But before we go into the particulars, I just want to ask about your opinion. What is your opinion about whether this development will substantially injure the value of adjoining property?
My opinion is that it will not damage adjoining property.
All right, let's discuss then the basis for your opinion. And Mr. King, I have a short report that Ms. Hopkins prepared that I'd like to hand out. This one is marked as Exhibit 7. Ask that be included in the record, please, sir. So, Ms. Hopkins, you reviewed the site plan for this development, correct?
Correct.
And then you reviewed home sales over the period of 2010 to 2015 for subdivisions that adjoin this proposed development and that are nearby to it and several other commercial retail centers, correct?
Correct.
And approximately how many sales did you look at over that time period?
Looked at over 1,200 sales.
All righty. And those are specified in more detail in the report, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so the purpose of analyzing those sales was to determine whether properties adjoining adjoining developments experience substantially different valuations than the properties that were further away.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. Let me ask you, with respect to both the abutting home sales and the ones that were not abutting but nearby, with respect to property value increases, generally, what did they all show?
They were comparable to the neighborhood or were actually greater in value increases.
And were there greater increases in value within the subdivisions that adjoined the commercial developments you looked at?
Yes.
Okay. I know one example is the the one behind Coles, which is Amersham Lane, correct?
Yes, sir.
And for that one, for 2010 to 2015, there was an increase in prices for houses along that street.
Correct.
And what was the approximate increase for that street?
6.48% average per year over that time period.
And is the other data that's reflected in your report consistent with this example in that the home values in the adjoining developments experience increases equal to or greater than the increases in the subdivisions that are further away from the commercial developments?
Talking about the adjoining subdivision?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
All righty. Let me ask you about, I know you just talked about, in your report talks about, in part, about residential and the impact on residential. Is there an impact, based on your review, that this development might have on the value of other commercial properties?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe that?
It's called the shadow concept, and you gentlemen and ladies may have heard of this before, where the
And so you believe that, it's your opinion that this development would have a positive impact on the property value of other commercial developments?
I would say
in
the value
this
and
area?
demand, yes.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for Ms. Hopkins, if you all do.
Any questions? Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you very much. I have a conclusion that's fairly brief that I could do now, or I could reserve until after, if there's any other evidence. But that's all the evidence I have to
You could,
offer. Just reserve just a couple minutes for.
We'll hold off on that until we get to
Okay.
the end. That's
So
okay.
then, for now, that is.
That's all I have.
I would like to also, for the applicant, include our actual application as part of the record, Mr. King, which I've marked as number 8.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. That's all that we have.
At this time, if there's anyone here who would like to cross-examine any of the witnesses who have presented evidence, this would be your opportunity to do that. You do not have to be sworn to ask questions. You can't present new evidence, but you can ask questions of those who have already given evidence. So this will be your opportunity to do that. We will have an opportunity for those who are in opposition to speak. If you have evidence you'd like to present, but this is your opportunity now to ask questions of those who've been already given evidence. So if you would like to do that, you may do that now. Okay, sir. Just if you come forward and just state your name, and then you can just ask who you want to cross-examine, and then we'll have them come up.
Absolutely. My name is James Fraser. I live at 8914 Whittingham Drive, which is an abutting property at the back of this development.
Okay, sir.
I have a question for the engineer and for the appraiser.
Okay.
Question for the engineer.
Traffic engineer or the stormwater?
Stormwater engineer.
Okay, stormwater engineer. If you could. If he would come up and let him get up here, I believe that was, I lost. Go ahead. Mr. Cowan, yes. You could just come up, Mr. Cowan, get a little closer so we can, we only have one mic. They should give us 2 there, but, okay.
My question is this. There's one stormwater drainage pond on the property, very little green space on the property, and our retention system is basically relying on that water coming out of the pond into the creek, correct?
Right.
What is this, is there any difference between the water quality standards for Union County and Mecklenburg County?
Mecklenburg's is a little more, they're different. In Mecklenburg County, we have to do, depending on the watershed, the requirements are based upon the watershed. So you always have to have a water quality element where you treat a smaller storm event and that's to get heavy metals and fertilizers and stuff like that out of the water. Then the bigger storms you are detaining, and in Mecklenburg County, it is so you do the 1 inch for the water quality, you do the 1 year, you do the 10 and 25.
So I guess my question then, the system is adequate for Union County, but not, is it adequate for Mecklenburg County as well? Are we running the stormwater from this development into Mecklenburg County's watershed?
It'll be the same. It'll be apples to apples.
Okay. That answers my question.
Okay, and then you wanted to speak to Ms. Hopkins. Ask her a question.
Quick question for you. Did the percentage property value increase that you spoke about at Hunter Oaks on the abutting property street, how did it compare to the rest of the neighborhood?
I think I'm glad you asked that.
And I'm done, thank you.
Okay, the total neighborhood was 2.63% growth during that same time. And Amersham was 6.48, or 6.45.
Okay,
So you're saying the ones directly behind it had a higher increase than the rest of the development?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, sir, if you come up and state your name and, okay, I guess you want to talk to her.
Hi, my name is John Starrett. I live at 8900 Cumberland Court in the Somerset neighborhood.
Where's that in relationship to the center?
I'm embedded.
You're what?
Embedded.
You mean you're in the middle of the neighborhood?
Yes, sir.
So your property's not
About 2
adjacent?
streets away.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks for coming. Just one question, the statute, or between, the change in price between 2010, 2015?
Like the average.
The average is, during that time, how much of that was impacted by the growth or the recovery from the?
Well, I compared them all equally. So I looked at the subject development and the areas around like the Coles and
Mhm.
yours. Then I looked at 4 other developments. So during, they were all, compared equally, they all had that experience. So I looked at adjoining and then I looked at nearby, all existing during the same time, and that's what we came up with.
So no matter where the neighborhood was within proximity of there,
They all had different changes. Like that was for the development that the adjoining, the statistics that I just reported was for the adjoining with this development area. There are others who were actually higher, and there were some that were lower during that same
Okay.
time period.
so if you go further away from the shopping center, the recovery is higher.
Actually, it was, no, the recovery, the recession, it hit everybody pretty much
Right.
the same.
Right.
But as far as actually the adjoining subdivisions actually showed, they might be slightly higher, but they were all higher than the ones that were further away.
So you're saying if we, no matter where we build a shopping center, we're gonna get better prices by being near a shopping center?
Well, that's what the market told me.
That's amazing. I'm trying to figure that out, why people buy houses in the country as opposed to buying near shopping centers. It doesn't make any,
Convenience.
it doesn't make sense. I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to ask you guys to consider.
Well, we're not taking,
And there's no counter on this, right? You don't have anybody proposing to speak to this? Okay, that's fine. It just seemed odd to me. Let me ask, can I ask the stormwater guy something?
yes, sure.
Thanks.
Mr. Collins, you come back, you two are popular?
I just want to know, could you explain to us or show us where the floodplain is in this area?
The floodplain is not on this property. The floodplain is on the opposite side, I guess the west side of Ray Road. The other quadrant where the CVS and Coles was, that property a long time ago was in a floodplain, but developers filled it up, removed the floodplain, and that was remapped. We removed it from the FEMA maps. So there's no floodplain on this property.
Okay, so the FEMA maps, I just looked up about 3 weeks ago, that show it's still in the floodplain. That's incorrect.
It,
Hmm?
what, on this property?
Yeah. On the left of the property, near where the creek is floodplain actually on the FEMA map right now,
This property.
on this property, right to the left of that map. And running across the street and on behind the neighborhoods, down by the creek, the neighborhood that's down behind, what's the plantation is on beyond Oaks?
It's time for questions
Yeah,
rather
we're just
than
asking questions.
testimony.
If you want to bring evidence in a minute, I'll give you that
Could you
opportunity.
explain to us how your study assessed flooding on Ray Road? And were you aware, I just checked 1 month, that we had an inch of rain over the course of 2 hours, and we had 2 inches of water on the Ray Road. Are you aware of things like that we deal with routinely?
I am not aware of that.
In this area?
Right.
I have pictures.
Yeah, no, I look at what's on the site,
Mhm.
and I model the pre-existing conditions on the site
Good.
and then post-developed conditions on the site, so that I am not making it worse. If there are problems in Ray Road today, that's the NCDOT's.
So whatever impact this design has and the design you provide, whether it dumps more water out there or less water out there, if it's having a negative impact, that's not a good issue, that's DOT's issue.
I would say that we are not aggravating any issue that might exist.
Okay. Were you aware of the previous study that they had on the previous proposal several years ago showed that on an average 50-year storm, which we had 2 that year, there would be 6 inches of water on Ray Road because of the same issues, so much roof space, so much blacktop as opposed to vegetation.
I'm not aware of that.
Are you talking about the area, this is all vegetation right now, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I'm talking about
it's open land.
the Walmart proposal.
Right.
When we were dealing with that, the issue came up that every time we had a 50-year storm, storm, which we had 2 of that one year, we would have 6 inches of water covering Lake Road. I'm just trying to figure out, just as residents of the area and the traffic, the increased traffic, how are we gonna deal with water issues, even if it's being funneled off of this property? Who's taking care of it from there? So that we're all not sitting there at traffic lights and 6 inches of water or more that are covering Lake Road. That was the previous engineer in the state that provided us that evidence that time. So just asking how they're addressing that.
All right, thanks, sir. Mr. Cowan, you have presented evidence that your design for this piece of property will not create a bigger problem than might already be there. In other words, you're mitigating, your system will mitigate any impact
Of my site.
of your site.
What
So
I'm hearing-
it's not gonna add, it might not take away, but it's not going to add any more issues than they already have.
That is correct.
So if there's 3 inches on the ground, there's gonna be 3 inches or less when you're done. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir, if you come forward, please.
Thank you. My name is Kelly Rubottom. I'm at 8912 Whittingham Drive in Waxhaw. That's an abutting property.
Okay, who would you like to ask questions of?
Actually, stormwater was one of the issues. All right, I'm gonna stay up here. Because I have a drain on my property that is it's back in the back corner of my property, which is a couple of feet from the property line. And this is something I've also talked to Mr. Orndorff about, but I just wanted to make sure that whatever impact you have, and one of the things they talked about was raising the berm, which is something I'm in favor of. Right now, I have flooding issues in my backyard with a fairly large storm. I would say probably on average, 3 times a year, it floods and backs up, so it seems inadequate as we speak. Mr. Orndorff told me that part of the reason for that is because the drain just runs out to the street, whereas your system will run into the collection pond. I just wanted to have in the record that if there is more of an impact and I get even more flooding, that Rayleigh Miller, or since they're the property owner, could help me with taking it off of my property and making sure it moves out, given the extra impact. And I don't know if you're allowed to come over to my property or not. Maybe this is.
Yes, sir.
This is what we, just to give Brent some familiarity. So Mr. Rubottom lives at right there, wherever that arrow is, pointing southwest. So he's got a drain here at this point. And then there's a existing pipe that comes out here, and it turns and comes out into this area and just fails. So now we get, when there's a storm, water comes in. I think it's probably stopped up here just because it's been there 20 years. It's not really been maintained or connected to another system. So I think water backs up into this pipe. Right. So what I talked to Mr. Rubin about is when this system is installed and this is continued versus just been running into nowhere, that will theoretically pull that water versus backing it up in the pipe where it has nowhere to go.
That's what, I just wanted to clear that with you to see if that is in concert with what you're planning for the site.
Yes, we're actually gonna tie, this existing storm drainage that comes from your backyard and the neighborhood into a new storm drainage system, take it all the way down to River.
Okay. All right, that's all I had for, I did have a few other questions for Mr. Orndorff.
Okay, Mr. Orndorff.
I, in oversight, did not think to actually bring a copy of the emails that Mr. Orndorff and I have exchanged. We met face-to-face for probably a couple of hours at my house to walk around the property, look at it, discuss some of the issues with it, and we talked about having Rayleigh Miller place a fence along my backyard just as an added buffer, raising the berm up to hopefully at least or possibly up to 8 feet from where it exists now. Also, the stormwater issue, which we just talked about, And I just wanted to ask Mr. Orndorff, since I don't have it with me tonight, if we could just have it in the record that those things have been agreed to.
Okay.
And then the one other thing that I would ask of him that we have not talked about was, I know we talked about the delivery schedule for delivery trucks being from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Is there a way we could amend in this to include trash collection?
I will have to, that's an issue that I believe is covered by it, but I need to go back to my anchor tenant and make sure that that complies with what their typical is. It seems fair to me that deliveries can't occur as long as the trash pickup should also not.
It's just for clarity purposes, I just want to have that in the record that we would like to, or I personally, since I live right behind that, what is going to be a very large, maybe not anchor tenant, but up to 49,990 square foot store. They're going to have trash collection at those same hours of the day and night. So we'd like to have that taken off. And then just the other thing was just the fence, the stormwater drain. Oh, you've got all of that. Okay. So that's, I didn't bring it, but if we could enter that in the record.
Mr. Orndorff, if you could, I meant to ask the question about buffers for the back. I see them here on here, but if you could explain to me what you've got and what your plans are for vegetation and berms and all that.
I can go to, it might be helpful in this, at this time to go to an aerial photograph if we can see it. All right, so here's the property. There's Tenton Hole Lane, which would be extended. This is Whittingham Court. Mr. Rubottom lives here. Mr. Frazier lives here. Ms. Boyce, who's also in the audience, lives here. This area from basically here all the way out to Tom Short is heavily wooded with evergreen. I believe they're eastern red cedars. Our plan is to leave all those in place, supplement them with additional landscaping. We're on our side of those. Those generally terminate around here, and so our property continues from here out to Tenton Hole, around here. This area, this stretch of area, which on the plan, this area here that is highlighted in green, this area is generally today unvegetated. So we're going to have to start from scratch, plant heavy buffers, berms, and create a buffer that does not today exist. The rest of the area from here to Tom Short and from here out to Ray has an existing natural buffer that we want to keep and again supplement. So that's the plan, is to take the areas that are not well buffered or adequately buffered, create buffering with berms, landscaping, fences, walls, combinations of those things, and create a buffer that will eventually provide similar protection to what exists in these other areas.
Now I do see on here a fence. Where's the fence going to be?
This fence here is a replacement of an old split rail fence that we've agreed right here. So between these two arrows,
okay,
that's Mr. Rubottom's property. And then there is in this area here, we've also committed to a wall, brick, concrete, or concrete, or hard wall with a minimum height of 5 feet. So this area right here, so you see that arrow points here, that arrow points to the other end. Okay. So those are the two areas with fences or walls.
Okay.
Well, are you promising a berm of 8 feet tall? I heard him mention that. That seemed difficult with a...
We're going to we have 60 feet to work with, and so just given the slope and get back down, we have to do the math and how high we can do it. So my guess is it's going to be 5 to 8 feet. I don't think you can get higher than 8 given the width of that area. And we'd like to do a minimum of 5. It's just a matter of doing the math and how grades work from one side to the other.
So that berm's going to be on this side of the current vegetation, on your side of it.
There is no current vegetation. This green area is the area for berm where there is no vegetation.
So the vegetation will be on the berm?
Correct. Yeah, new vegetation.
Okay.
Newly planted.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Anyone else who would like to ask questions? I see any?
You can't see.
Okay.
Stormwater's in the way.
I'm sorry.
My name's Dave Greenberg. I'm the Vice President of the HOA of Somerset, and I've been dealing with Mr. Orndorff on a lot of these topics and trying to make sure that these buffers and the neighbors are not affected. So one of the things I wanted to make sure, because of Kelly mentioning putting it in the record, I'm not sure if this constitutes being in the record, the box that Ken was just talking about with the 5 foot wall, because the people that wall, the abutting people are not here, and there was some emails between Ken and them. I don't know if we need to get that in the record, or are you okay with putting that in the record?
I mean, the plan is in the record with the notes on it, but the email is not technically been introduced to Mr. Rubach.
So the plan states that there's going to be a 5-foot wall constructed of brick and stone
That's the
concrete.
minute, right. It says that in the box, the red that's
Right,
in
right.
red.
Yeah, so it's part of the record, so.
Okay. I did have a question then, just for the civil engineer again.
Okay. He just stayed up here because he was
Ken and I have discussed this, but in your study, when you're talking about releasing the water, and it's going to go under Ray Road, okay, it is going to attach to 6 Mile Creek. That's what it is. So my question is, in doing your analysis, did you look at the effect on 6 Mile Creek upstream, which is Somerset, essentially, where 6 Mile Creek goes through, is in the floodplain along Somerset?
Not upstream. Basically, what we would do is look at the 100-year floodplains on the opposite side. So I need to know how high that water is in the 100 years storm event. And that's sort of my starting point when I run the model underneath Ray Road and into the pond.
Well, I guess I'm not an expert on this, so I just need to understand that the issue that we're having as a neighborhood is that 6 Mile Creek goes along, abuts property owners in our neighborhood. And when Longview and Hunter Oaks was constructed, which Longview is on Tom Short Road, north of here, I guess it would be north, the amount of water that was put into 6 Mile Creek significantly increased. This is going to also put 6 Mile Creek, water going into 6 Mile Creek. I'm just concerned that we are already having major flooding issues, so I'm concerned that this might contribute to that upstream. So I don't really understand if it would or wouldn't, or if you have to look at that or not.
A couple things. I have an aerial that shows.
Yeah, can you
wider
tell us
area.
what upstream is and
I'm not sure
downstream?
if this
and-
covers the area or if it stops short.
Let's try a bit more. It's not good. Yeah, that should.
All right.
There's, so I think you're talking about this area here, Dave. Is that right?
Do we see 6? Can somebody show me?
I think.
Is that it right down there?
That's the walking trail. I think this is the walking trail, maybe? No. 6 Mile Creek, I believe, is slightly to the left of this.
Okay.
And then 6 Mile Creek is essentially what goes under Ray Road and is really responsible for all the water flowing. And so that's where all this water from the detention pond eventually is going to be released into.
Okay, so Mr. Cowan, I think what he's asking is this project going to affect upstream?
No. And it won't affect downstream either in the storm events up to the 25-year storm. In the 100-year storm, there is some attenuation as a term where we're holding the water back and we're releasing it at a slower rate. There is still some of that going on. But generally speaking, in the 100-year storm, houses aren't designed to withstand tornadoes. We don't design ponds to withstand a 100-year storm. So the 100-year storm will let more water out, a little bit more than what is there today, but there is still some attenuation going on. It will not affect upstream. It could have some effect on downstream, but that's within the confines of the requirements. And another point to that, before 2007, every neighborhood
All right, anyone else? Okay, seeing no one. Okay, we do have someone. I'm sorry, I didn't see it first. State your name, please. Okay, well, can you just tell us your name,
My
please?
name is Anne Boyce. I live at 8910 Whittingham Drive, and I am right here beside Kelly.
Okay.
I know you've talked with Kelly, you've talked with my husband about the vegetation there. I just want to make sure that it is uniform with like what's going on.
I can't hear you.
I just want to make sure that what he is doing behind Kelly's house is uniform with my property as much as it can be. And I know that we have had conversations with my husband and I and Ken, and we're pretty much so on board. I just want to make sure it's all
Now,
uniform.
your property is one of those that doesn't have a lot of.
I have no vegetation.
Okay, right, okay.
Like bearing.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
I just want to
okay.
make sure that the vegetation that's going to be behind Mr. Rubottom's house where the left arrow is, it's all going to be, the fence, the berm is all going to be consistent
With
the
what's-
best it can be with the lay of the land.
Sure. This over here, these two are the sections. This is just a small section of this landscape area, so it calls out the minimum requirements for that, which are 3 rows of, and I can't read all that, but and so that's the same section. We show it here. Doesn't really exist here other than the supplemental, but from here over, these sections are all the same, and so when we, plant this, berm it, we're going to create a uniform section from where the vegetation today ends around to here, and then this section will be very as well. So all this will be very, I would say, uniform and organized, if that's what you're asking.
Yes.
With the stuff on either side of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's stuff like we had during our meeting. All right. Then I have a question for you. Thanks. On the property line that you were talking about over in Hunter Oaks that is behind the Coles, it does. It does sit much further down. So when those people look out their back window, they do not see the rear side of these buildings nor the delivery drop-off, because the Coles delivery drop-off is on the side here. So do you think my property value is going to go up, stay the same, or go down when you look out my bedroom window? And I know that they are going to drop this down some, but I'm still going to be looking at the top of their building until the vegetation grows, which is going to take more than a year.
I can't answer that.
Okay.
I can just show you that, or I can tell you that this wasn't the only subdivision that I looked at that had an abutting road.
Okay.
And so the other properties that had it abutting had increases in value.
Okay. So looking out your bedroom window, looking onto a top of a building until the trees grow and they thicken up, my property value wouldn't go down.
I can tell you what the market has said about the other properties.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Could you, I have a quick question, and I'll get right to you. What's the, I may know the answer to this, but the vegetation you're going to plant there, what's the what will it be when you plant it? What's the height on this? What's our requirement on it?
Sure, usually 5 to 7 years.
So 5-7 years is going to mature. Okay. I guess I didn't ask that. I'm sorry.
Those will likely, the evergreens and things in those areas will likely be 8 feet tall at planting.
Oh, okay.
But they're going to grow to 30 feet. And
All right. Cool. All right, that's good. Okay.
Yeah, hi, my name is Liza Kravis. I live at 1208 Glenwater Lane. I live in Hunter Oaks. And kind of a follow-up to her question there, when the Coles property, before Rayleigh Miller owned it and Harris Teeter owned that property, that...
You got to give testimony or ask a question.
Oh, okay.
Because we need to swear you in once we get to...
Okay, my question really was related to the buffer and the landscaping that was put there, as part of that development. It was put in before the rest of the development. So my question is about the timing of this buffer landscaping area, and is that something that will be put in before the rest of the property so it has time to begin to mature?
soil to create a berm on which, we can't just, we went in there and planted this up today, we have no ability to create a berm.
Okay.
So it's, when we clear the site and.
So
do
when
our-
you grade the land, though, could that be done at the beginning, even if all the property isn't developed initially?
Oh, yeah, it could be. It's just not going to have, you're talking about a 12-month construction period. It's not going to be a material change in the beginning construction or the end of construction. It's not going to grow.
Well, you give people an extra year for it to start to grow. That's just, my question is.
That's typically we plant at the end of our construction project. We clear, build, and toward the end is the landscaping. That's just the sequence of construction and development is the landscaping is typically at the end.
Is there a reason for that, or is that just the way y'all, I mean, there a
That's-
scientific reason for that, or?
That's just the way, that's just
Right.
convention.
Well, it normally gets damaged during
Well,
the
that's what I was-
construction process too.
I was wondering.
We've got irrigation pipes and those get torn out.
Right, sure.
Okay,
Utilities and trench.
my point was just that across the street, that those trees were put in before the rest of the land was developed. And it is nice protection on Amersham Lane for those people, so just wanted to make that point.
And these trees are here. There's just this gap that was, for whatever reason, not planted by whoever planted the rest of these. It stops right here. Same thing at Coles. Coles has a similar buffer here, but then there was supplemental planting on the slope beyond, below that row of evergreens.
Okay. Anything?
Okay, and one final question for you as well. So just back on the stormwater, because I know, I personally, I'm not an engineer. I know I'm not an engineer, but I sat through a lot of those other hearings in the past. That stormwater pond looks small to me, and I know you're gonna do the right thing, but.
Yeah, no, I think there'll be two.
You think there will be two? That does not look, in my mind, what I've seen before, it did not look adequate.
Yeah, the last study that I looked at, we had a big wet pond. A wet pond it always has water in it.
Right.
And then interior to the site, somewhere over in this area, we were looking at putting a sand filter. Sand filters can go underground.
I know there's other kinds of ways to detain elsewhere, but that was one of my questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. At this time, this is the opportunity, if you are here and would like to present evidence in opposition to the petition, you would now come and be sworn and present your evidence. It's evidence only. We do not receive hearsay, so it has to be evidence. So if you would like to do that, you may do that now by coming forward. Okay. Hearing none, Mr. Winthrop, if you want to come up and give your concluding.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be quite brief. I will not rehash what's already been said.
Thank you.
Simply to just summarize by saying that I stated those 5 criteria at the beginning, and in the interest from the ordinance section 80.110-8H, and I won't read those out in the interest of time either, but simply to conclude by saying that we believe, and Mr. Orndorff has worked very hard to work with the neighbors, and I think that that's indicated tonight by the fact that it shows that they know him well, and there have been a lot of meetings and collaboration and good faith discussions about this. So with that overlay, we believe also that we've more than satisfied the criteria under section 80.110-H, and therefore just respectfully ask that you all approve this SUP.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Board, at this time, is there any further questions that you need to have answered?
I'm sorry. I forgot. They were talking about a couple of emails about the wall and then one about the vegetation, and Mr. Orndorff found those.
Okay.
So may I submit those into the record, Mr. King?
I believe those will be.
Are all the parties that wrote the emails present?
There, Ken wrote them. Mr. Orndorff wrote them to them. So you.
They're okay with the terms. There's only one party.
I thought you all wanted them. One of them is to Mr. Rubottom, and the other recipient is not here.
Well, what's you, Mr. Sturdy?
Yeah, we can accept those if they're from him as opposed to from the recipient.
Okay, well then, for the record, one of them is marked number 9, and that's the one to Mr. Rubottom. And then the other one is marked Exhibit 10, and I can't tell who it's to. Can you say who it's? And how do you spell their last name? To Mr. Femia. All right, and that's Exhibit 10. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before you close public hearings, I have got something to say.
Okay, okay, just 1 second. Board, any other questions for anyone?
Just one. Might be towards you, Jim. We are going to avoid the previous special use then, is that correct?
I think that should probably be the part of any, if there's a motion to approve, I think that should be one of the conditions of the approval.
And that was really kind of one of my questions, whether there were any conditions on the previous special use.
Mr. Orndorff would probably be the better to speak to that. I'm not sure if any off the top of my head, other than just the site plan.
Yes, there were several conditions on the previous SUP, most of which have been carried forward. Some of the other ones have been changed, whether it's the square footage, the uses, but delivery hours, excuse me, I've got a tickle in my throat. Delivery hours, stormwater, you went through some of them, but some of the ones have just carried forward from that. Other ones have been amended to match this plan.
There was also one about the height of the lights that could be put in.
And what we've done in that one, I think, is deferred to the ordinance, the new ordinance, which have some similar characteristics. Instead of having a stated height, I think there's an ordinance requirement which we.
Yeah, section 55.130, which it's in the current new ordinance, which is one of the conditions they've agreed to comply with.
And there was also one, if I remember correctly, about the lighting on the back side of that main building at night.
I don't think that was one.
It was something about, yeah, there was something about it. I can't quote it to you word for word, but there was something about it.
Mr. Matthews, you come up.
Currently, the county has in place an ordinance which actually regulates light pollution, light spillover. We didn't have that in place previously. So the ordinance is actually more stringent than what you would have had just on the conditions previously. And what they've suggested is they'll meet the ordinance as it is, which provides foot candles that you can't go beyond property lines. We think that's acceptable.
Okay.
Anything other staff?
Yes, there's a couple things staff wanted to say. First thing is, when considering the special use permit, if the board so chooses to decide to approve the request would not become effective until after it has gone before the planning board and county commissioners for a site plan amendment and amendment to the PUD. The other thing that staff wanted to point out, on this current site plan or conceptual plan, it shows the 6 out parcels there. Each one of those out parcels, as they are developed, would be required to go before the planning board and county commissioners for site plan amendment at that time as well. So there would be additional public input and everything.
Do we have to make that a part of the motion? That's just obvious.
That second part, you don't have to make a part of the
Okay.
motion. I just wanted to make that part of the
So the
record.
board needs to know that this is not the last time, the community needs to know.
That's
This
correct.
is not the last time this will be looked at.
Well, and they can't, even if they get the special use permit, I assume they can't proceed without those things you just mentioned.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you had asked a question previously about the special use permit and the timing on that, and that has changed in the ordinance, and Jim brought that up. There's a provision in the ordinance now that For site-specific development plans, the applicant can request that the permit be valid for a period of 2 to 5 years. Currently, the way the ordinance is written is that if it's approved for 12 months, if after 12 months it expires, unless they ask for an extension, and the extension can only go up to 6 months past that time frame, and it still has to come to the board for the extension. The applicant is requesting that this be considered a site-specific development plan, and it be for a period of up to 5 years for this permit. Under general statutes, they can make that request, and that's the applicants that make that request.
And what is the event that triggers not, do they have to actually build, do they have to grade, do
They do. In that period of time, they actually have to obtain a building permit. Unless the site doesn't require a building permit, then substantial activity actually has to start. This requires a building permit, obviously. So a building permit would have to be issued, and they'd have to start construction of the building.
So they'd have to start that within 5 years, and in their application, they have requested the 5-year time period?
That's correct.
Okay. Otherwise, it'd just be 12 months?
It would if we didn't state that this would be a site-specific development plan.
So the whole parcel has to be started, the whole, or just
activity on the
okay,
parcel.
so they can start one, and then, you know, 4 years from now, they could build the anchor tenant, and then they could just wait a while and build something else. And
Technically, the way we would view this is one development plan. So they don't have to have the whole thing built in 5 years. They may have 2 of the buildings built. They've technically sort of met the requirements at that point. If for some reason the market just isn't there and they don't want to build the out parcels, they don't necessarily have to build the out parcels.
When does the out parcel become an out parcel?
That's a good question. I don't know that
I assume when they subdivide it, they're got to subdivide that out parcel?
And sometimes it's subdivided, sometimes it stays with the development. It really depends.
But you said that each one would have to be approved on an individual basis, correct?
The site plans for the out parcel. So anything on the out parcel that has not been approved as a site plan obviously still has to come back to a site plan approval. Not through this board, but through the commissioners.
So you're saying in that site, and that's the 5-year time period, not the granting of the special use?
That's correct.
So is there any time limit on the special use?
Well, yes, because the special use still applies to the buildings that are not in the out parcels. It still
Okay.
applies to that as well.
So the 5 years really just applying to the buildings that are identified, not the out parcels at this point?
That's correct. And I may have not been correct, but
Okay.
they've not spoken correctly on that one. But that, yes, sir, that's correct.
What reason do you feel justifies them asking for the 5 years over the 12 months?
Well, it's really a general statute requirement that as long as they've submitted a site-specific plan, that they can make that request. It's not something that we can say yes or no. It's basically their request.
They're automatically given 2 years, and then they can request up to 5.
That's true. They're
Well, and if they request 5, do they automatically get it?
It's up to the board.
That's up to the board.
Oh, it's up to the board.
Yeah, they requested up to 5. They get a minimum of 2.
I guess the reason I'm asking that is if they were to take grading equipment out there, work for 3 months, totally stop, nothing be done for the next 4 years.
No, sir, because grading permit is not a building permit. The building permit is actually the permit of the building.
I know, but that's what he's worried about. That's what Rick's worried about is do grading for 3 months, then, but the 5, they've still got 5 years. But he's worried about them doing the grading for 3 months, leaving it an ugly mess, and it's not, well, I guess they could do that anyways, though. But
They could go out there and grade it if you approved it. They could have graded, and if you only gave them 12 months, they could grade it tomorrow if it was approved and let it sit vacant for 8 months until they decided they wanted to actually build a building. But the actual time frame doesn't literally technically end until the building permit side of it actually starts. Not grading. Grading isn't what triggers that. It's the building permit itself.
So they go out and they pour footings, and then that's the clock acting
ticking.
on the building permit.
That's correct, yes, ma'am. So I just want to make you.
That's one of my frustrations. That the timing gets frustrating to me because I've been around here a long time, and this piece of property has just been there and it's been through so many things, and I would like to see something built there someday, and I would hope it would happen expedient. Anyway,
Well, it's been woods at
The
least.
5-year thing makes me a little nervous because
The board can certainly say 2 years, because they're asking for up to 5, you can say 2, and I mean, they're guaranteed for a minimum 2. I did also want to point out, you asked a question about the looks of the facility. As part of the PUD as a whole, it actually requires that the PUD is in some form of harmony. We have interpreted that to mean that the materials and the basic designs all have to be about the same. So if you look at the buildings that have been built, the Coles and so on, they're similar in design, they're similar in materials. They're not exactly, but that's how we've interpreted that. We would do the same with this site because it's part of a grand PUD.
so if we gave them 2 years and they needed more, they could come back and.
It's my understanding they could come back for an extension.
Mr. Chairman, why don't we hear from the applicant as to, about that request, because I don't think we were aware of it.
I would like to know more about why 5, if you could come up.
Our anchor tenant or our partner is Harris Teeter. They want to have a store here. They've got it scheduled for 2018 or 2019. I don't even know exactly what day they're planning on trying to open this. Between now and then, a lot of things can happen. We've seen it in 2007, 2008, and we don't have a crystal ball to know what can happen between now and when they actually want to have
Now, you wouldn't expect to build anything else until they probably.
Oh, it's possible that we could develop and build the out parcels first. We could do a different tenant first. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball as to how this will unfold in terms of phasing. But we also know from lessons learned that more time is better.
Sure.
My only concern is if they go out there and start something and then they walk away from it for whatever reason, then the people in the neighborhood are gonna be looking at a conglomerated mess. That's the only thing that concerns me over the 5 years.
Well, that could happen anyways.
Right.
But I guess the
2 year
tool you have is that if they gotta do something, they gotta do it in X number of years. They could create a mess and have it there for.
2 years is better than 5 years.
Well, I mean, they could have it there for 20 years.
Yeah.
They could
What
create a
he's
mess
saying-
and never do anything, just like we have here in Charlotte, a few of those.
Oh, that's true.
Whose hole is that? Whose hole is that? But I mean, so it can be forever, but I know what you're saying, you got a little stick that it's either got to be there a shorter period of time or it's got to be there forever.
Well, I guess my position would be I'd rather just sit there as it is now than get started and like you said, halfway finished. People in the neighborhood looking out at no berm been built yet, because they're still constructing and they're doing that at the end.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how much control the board can,
Yeah, I get that.
can actually influence that.
We can't really, but it just kind of bothers me.
Just questions.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. Okay, so board, any other questions we need to ask before we close the hearing? Anyone? Sir?
We ain't got all
I'm
night.
concerned why, I guess this is the Jim question. The 2 years, is that a problem if we put that in for only 2 years?
It's not a problem. Well, you don't have any, I mean, the statutes say if it's site-specific, they're given 2 years. You can't give them less than 2
They're going to
years.
have 2 years either way.
All right, well, right here, here's my thing. If we give them the 5 years, from a financial standpoint, they're gonna wait till they get the flagship building before they go out there and start doing stuff. If we put him at 2 years, and he's already stood here and said that it's gonna be a while on the flagship, they're gonna go out there and start creating a mess, and you're gonna look at a mess. Because they're gonna have to meet the standard to keep it up. And all they gotta do is ask for a building permit for the gas station and still meet the criteria of the special use because they've started it, correct?
Well, it's my understanding that the gas station is going to be part of the anchor tenant. So until they get that anchor tenant, the gas station portion's not going to go in.
Okay,
Why
well
can't
then,
they just get a
how about,
permit for the gas
you
station?
still got 2 more buildings though.
Right, that's correct.
So you could build this one here and have a big open area there where you grade it off and look at it for 3 years. I mean, my opinion would be better off to give them the 5 years because you'd be less likely to go in there and start till you was ready to start.
Makes sense.
Because if they just go with the 2 years, you're putting them in a
the
position to where they have no choice but to go in there and do that. And he's already said you've got to wait on the anchor store to know what it is, or before they decide to do it.
You're correct. I mean, with the 2-year limit, it's going to force them to start construction quicker, and so that they secure that special use permit so that the permit's valid.
Well, I mean, I think the neighbors would benefit by giving them the 5 years where they would wait till it was time to do the starting.
I see your point there, sir. Wise. Anything else? Okay. All right, nothing being, I will close this public hearing. And at this time, we will deliberate it as a board. We've heard all the evidence we're going to hear. You're welcome to remain, but no more questions will be received. No more evidence will be received. Board, we will now, if we could, we want to walk through the 5 findings of fact. We will start with number 1. Please tell me what you heard about these items. Number 1, the proposed use and development comply with all regulations and standards generally applicable within the zoning district and specifically applicable to the particular type of special use.
Well, all development does comply with all regulations and standards.
Well, it complies due to the simple fact that it already had a special use permit for it. And
And these uses are permitted with a special use in this PUD.
I think they're talking about the specific development standards primarily here. Like stormwater, setbacks, buffers, and it seems like they meet or exceed those.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this gets into the harmony issue, item number 1.
Okay. So we're meeting and exceeding all applicable requirements of the development ordinance.
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Anything else on that one? Okay, at this time we will vote on that one. Everyone who is in favor that the petition meets the requirement of this this question, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Number 2, the proposed development will not materially endanger the public health or safety.
I think it's going to improve it because of the sidewalks being installed.
Sidewalks are also extended beyond the property,
Right.
across all the way to the
To the developments.
entrance to Hunter Oaks.
Yeah.
And we heard testimony from the engineer that the water issue wasn't in danger, so.
Stormwater management plan indicated that the property would not increase any runoff. You're correct. The traffic engineer also indicated that the traffic plan would mitigate current traffic patterns and mitigate the future traffic caused by the property. Anything further that we want to add to this one? Anything? Okay, at this time we'll take a vote on this one. Everyone in favor that this question, this permit meets the standard request or required by this permit, by this question, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the third one is the proposed development will not substantially injure the value of abutting property or is a public necessity.
Based on the testimony from our expert appraisal and the evidence that she presented, it shows that it will not endanger or lower the property value.
The applicant-
Won't substantially injure.
Yeah.
The applicant did present a witness who did testify that the property value, in her opinion, would not be injured by this development. Anything else?
Well, and I mean, she actually did some studies of surrounding neighborhoods with similar residential adjacent to commercial shopping centers.
Our entire report has been entered into evidence, and it did include, as the attorney noted, evaluation of properties in like conditions where these type of developments are. Okay, anything else for that one? Okay, we'll take a vote on this one. Those who would vote that this question is answered in the affirmative for this permit, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Number 4, the proposed development be in harmony with the area in which it's located.
I think it will be. The building materials will be complementary to the existing buildings. The architectural designs will be complementary to it.
I believe the evidence was brought up that the B2 component of the PUD, the PUD is going to have business development. So this seems to complement the area. I would also just state that the applicant seemed to work with the neighborhood to mitigate concerns and to come to some midway on some things, agreements on some things. I also was presented that that Harmony has been kind of dealt with case law with regards with these things.
It was prima facie case.
Right. So.
And also, we have this development, the intersection of 2 main roads.
Correct. And there's already commercial development on the other 2 corners. Okay, everyone, to any other things for that one? Anything else else? Okay. All those who would vote in affirmative that this question is answered in the affirmative for this petition, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Last one, the proposed development will be in general conformity with the comprehensive plan.
And that would be the Union County Comprehensive Plan, right? It's the formal name of the document.
Yes, sir. Well, the plan for this is a PUD, and this is the B2 component of the PUD. So it's going to be commercial. It's zoned for commercial. It's going to be commercial. Therefore, to me, it's in conformity with the plan, and it met the requirements for a small community center. I believe they said, I forget the numbers, but it was 400,000 at the top, and it's definitely below that at 240. So it's also near a high concentration of residential dwellings. Anything else? Okay, we'll vote on this one. All those in favor that this question is answered in the affirmative for this petition, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. This time I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion we approve giving the applicant the 5-year extension to start
Well,
this.
5 years, no.
5-year period.
Yeah, well.
Extension's gonna be 7. 5 years.
Okay, we'll give them 5 years.
All right. Okay.
Okay, don't we also want to, obviously,
abolish the other one.
right, that the current special use permit will become void upon approval of this special use permit.
Okay, so motion to approve for the 5 years.
I think we also we had that exhibit 1 that it's the site, also it will be developed pursuant to the site-specific plan. I think should be part of the motion, which was exhibit.
Well, that had to be the site-specific before they could ask for the 5 years.
Right, but that's also what we're approving too.
Okay.
Which I think was, wasn't that exhibit 2?
Okay. I think 1.
I think exhibit 2 is site-specific. Per site-specific plan. Also, I think that they were going to, Exhibit 1, that they're going to meet with the conditions of Exhibit 1 agreed to by the
Yes.
Applicant. And I think it'd be helpful to say that the uses, find that in a minute, that where are those list of uses? Find it in a minute. Oh, here it is. Maybe that's not it. Oh, here it is. That in regard to the eating establishments, the personal vehicle repair, the financial services will be located in out parcels 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. That has to be the location of those items. I think that's what their testimony was, but it's not clear from their plan.
Well, you can go back to Exhibit 1. It is.
Yeah.
In Exhibit 1, it states.
It states the location?
It states that they'll be on the out parcels. Maximum 3.
Right, never mind.
On out parcels of the eating establishments, maximum 1 fueling station located on out par, yeah,
Okay,
it's
good.
in Exhibit.
Never mind.
Okay.
Do we need to address any of the agreements that have been made between neighbors and developer in terms of berm or fence or?
I think that's actually on the site plan.
That is on the site, okay. So
It's kind of hard to read with the little print.
squared away them.
It is, you can actually read it on that.
Yeah. So that's a private that way. Okay.
Jim, can you think of anything else we were talking about in regard to conditions?
Not off the top of my head.
So if I make a motion to approve per Site Pacific, given 5 years, abolish existing special use, and meet requirements of Exhibit 1.
And we adopt the findings of the the findings of fact that were done in the prior 5 votes.
Do I need to do that again now?
If you could.
I think you did.
Okay, I make a motion to approve Site Pacific for 5 years is one condition. The other condition would be abolish the existing special use permit.
Probably say void rather than.
Or void.
Terminate.
Terminate.
Terminate's better. It's really not void.
Meet all requirements of Exhibit 1 and adopt the finding of facts that we went through as part of the agreement.
Okay. Do I have a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
If you did present evidence, please make sure you filled out the green sheet of paper before you leave and leave it with the clerk. Board, we will go back to item, yeah, where it was. Sorry, we're not done yet. I lost my agenda. Anyway, it's the revised, okay, there it is. Item C, discussion of rules of procedure. If, Mr. Matthews, if you could come up to the,
Jim may do more of it, but I do apologize. I confused something earlier. I had the oldest version, and you actually have the newest version. So I didn't hand you anything out because I did have the oldest version, and you do have the newest version of the rules and procedures. So disregard my earlier comment. And the thing that we talked about, Bill, with that one item, it actually was being removed completely on the newer version.
So they're gonna keep that in the ordinance?
Subpoena's issue, they were actually going to remove that section. We talked about that you had no need to be in there. Number 4,
Right.
it's actually on the newer version, it actually has been removed.
Okay, but is that just going to be in the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, and not our rules of procedure? Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so what we have is your most up-to-date, we want to do this kind of,
That is correct, absolutely. Jim, did you have a presentation? Because I just want to clarify, I made a sort of a boo-boo there when I was talking.
okay, our
The only presentation I was going to make is I hope you're ready, and if you got any discussion, we'll discuss it.
well,
I know you didn't get these until late, and
yeah, I didn't get mine until today in the mail, so I'm not prepared to vote on these.
Absolutely.
But
So-
it would actually, if the board has any questions, we certainly can start the discussion tonight. But I would say we would continue it into, what month is this? Into March. Man, it's already going to be March next month.
Right.
But if there's any questions right now or any, we could go ahead and start discussing. But if you haven't really read through it, then we can wait.
I have one question.
Okay, what page?
Where it was talking about the regular board members shall be appointed for 3 years staggered, and they can only serve 2 consecutive terms. That's what I was looking for now, trying to find it.
That won't be in there. That should be in the ordinance, because that's dictated by, we can't dictate our own terms.
Right, and just so that the board knows, we have actually requested that term limit be removed from the ordinance altogether. So there would be no more term limits if the commissioners approve it. And that was discussed with the planning board, because the planning board has to make recommendations on the ordinance, and then that goes to the commissioners. You make your own decisions about your rules of procedure, which are not ordinance, they're just rules of procedure. So the planning board did hear that. They did make a recommendation that those term limits be removed.
Right.
So if the Board of Commissioners will hear this sometime in the next couple of months, hopefully, and if that gets approved, then there will be no more term limits.
That'd be great.
Any other,
Yeah, next to the last page.
next to the last page, does it have a number? Well, next to the last, huh? What's it look like? Is that one?
Should have
It's the
that.
one with the pretty ink on it, the colorful rainbow. Anybody?
I guess that's just a code for changes or something?
It is just a
Well,
code.
my
It was
question,
changed.
it has padding sales. Who should take that personal?
I feel like you need one.
Yeah.
What did it say? That's what mine.
Mark's looking for a padded sale.
Oh.
Any other questions at this time? I would ask everyone to please take opportunity in the next 30 days to read these, and maybe next month we'll put this on the agenda for a
Yeah.
vote. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. I just wanted to.
And also, we kind of refresh you on, a lot of good rules and conflicts and procedures, and, just kind of keep you up to date with best operating procedures.
What we would like to do, is, if time permits at the next meeting, is also to go over sort of our processes for how we handle future meetings. What you had here tonight, obviously was, you've got a special use permit. And what we want to talk to you about is when should the staff provide our recommendation and not just, well, this is what it is. Because I think part of our job is to give you a recommendation. So we want to talk about those processes, kind of get your feeling for when you want that to come in the meeting, and we'll go over that at the March 8th,
We used
March
to
14th.
get that all the time, but the previous board didn't like that, so the leadership did away with that.
Well,
Okay.
personally,
Well, and if this board does not want that,
I
then
personally like it because
Yeah, very much.
you're the professionals. I know we have to base our decision on the evidence.
Absolutely.
But you're also the professionals that understand the technical issues. So if you give me a recommendation, then it gives me guidance on kind of where to go.
well, you weigh
I
that
don't
with
always
any
have to
other
agree with
information you get.
your technical. I don't have to agree with it, but it gives me some background on because we're not professionals here. At least Mark is the only one, but
Yeah, Mark.
everybody else is.
Mark?
So that's why I'm going to a padded sale.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and also
All that
there are
policy.
for discussion next time, just for y'all, thinking about the variations of what you can do too. For example, standard number one is whether it meets the standards of the development ordinance.
Right.
That to me is a good one for the staff to express their opinion.
Absolutely.
Because there are a lot of standards in there about the heights of the lights, the setbacks, parking ratio. I mean, can be a lot of stuff. And so, it's either met or it's not. Harmony, that's more y'all's judgment call. And they can
property value and things like that.
right, and they won't have heard the expert, and they won't have heard the expert testimony on the property value, and so it may be say, we're expecting testimony on that for you to weigh, but
right.
And also compliance with the Union County, I keep forgetting the name of it.
It's the
comprehensive plan. That's a good thing for staff often to give opinion because they're very familiar with that plan. They know whether it's supposed to be RA or commercial or whether it's part of a PUD. So it may be, y'all think about, maybe some sort of hybrid is what we'll want from them. Because to a certain degree, it does sound funny to the public for the zoning administrator to say, well, my recommendation is to grant this permit, and he hadn't heard the evidence on harmony, and the public says, why is he recommending this? I'm opposed to it. He hadn't even heard me testify. This whole thing's fixed.
Well, and I wanted to state that actually that was one of the things that we wanted to talk to you about is we would actually prefer to wait to give you our recommendation until the end of all the testimony. Because oftentimes there is information that's presented that we're not aware of that may sway our recommendation or may ask us, we may say, listen, we're not prepared to give you a recommendation because we've not had time to evaluate that. So we would actually prefer to give it to you at the end just before the board gets ready to deliberate. There's our recommendation based on all the evidence and testimony. We give you a synopsis at the beginning. Let the applicant do their dog and pony show and present their evidence testimony. Let the opposition present their evidence and testimony, and then we give you our staff recommendation at the end. That was something we wanted to talk to you about and see what you felt about that.
Right, well, y'all just think about. I think what Brian and I were doing is just giving you things to think about going one way or another, and y'all can just think about it next month, discuss it, and see what you want to do.
Well, why don't we try it out next month? We'll probably have our hearing before we have the thing.
Well, next month will be different. So in that situation, the zoning administrator will be taking a position that he's made a right decision.
Right.
And so he's not in a judgment hat role.
My recommendation is to uphold
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?